Hey guys, I'm here to do the Blonde Hit the Static album review, finally. So Blonde has been out a little bit over a week. We've been waiting for this album since Channel Orange, which was back in 2012. Hello, 4 years, and now it's finally out. And Frank Ocean not only drops one album, but he drops two albums. One of them called Blonde and one of them called Endless, which is a visual album, kind of like what we saw with Lemonade and Beyonce. Everybody thought that the album was going to be called Boys Don't Cry, but Frank Ocean throws another curveball at us saying, no, it's called Blonde, and it ain't spelled right. Well, it is in iTunes, but then when you look at the album artwork, it's Blonde without an E. So where does this come from? Frank Ocean actually posted on his Tumblr, which is, for those of you who don't know, a social media blogging website. Awesome. I love Tumblr. Frank Ocean talks about how he doesn't drive anymore. He remembers seeing a blonde girl with her head down and she's strapped in. All he remembers seeing is the blonde hair that was falling downwards and her strapped in, and he remembered how it felt to be trapped. Frank Ocean now doesn't really drive anymore, and he lives in London, and nobody really drives in London, so it's easy for him to get away with not having that trap feeling that he had felt for so many years. Now, the Boys Don't Cry title that we keep hearing, which is the name of his magazine that he actually came out with. So, let's see. He dropped a magazine, he dropped an album, and he dropped a visual album. 4 years. 3 items. I think it's kind of fair. Boys Don't Cry actually came from Frank Ocean saying that boys do cry. He didn't cry much in his years, but now crying is one of his favorite things on earth. I kind of see how the Blonde and the Boys Don't Cry correlate, because the Blonde is all about being trapped, while the Boys Don't Cry is that the crying kind of lets you escape from that trap. So let's talk about the musicality of the album. The rhythm is very fluid and cool throughout the album, and the lyrics are very relatable, yet there's not really many choruses or hooks that stand out. It all kind of flows together. The lyrics are actually the driver of the entire album, and we're just kind of the passengers listening in to what Frank Ocean has been through in the past couple years. So there's a lot of gospel in this album, just as we saw in Kanye's Life of Pablo and Chance the Rapper's Coloring Book. When you have the gospel influences with this fluid rhythm, and the lyrics is really what grabs the attention of the listener. Kanye actually wrote a poem in the Boys Don't Cry magazine about McDonald's. And there's been a lot of talk about it on Twitter and on different articles. It's really relatable, and it's very, very Kanye, if you know what I mean. I think you should go check it out if you haven't already. I noticed that Frank Ocean's album is actually in the pop category, which I wouldn't put this album in a pop category. I don't know if I would put it in hip-hop either, but it's a very, very, very genre-filled album. There's influences from pop, there's influences from R&B and from hip-hop, as well as rap. And I think that at some points during the album, Frank actually sounds like Chance the Rapper. So now let's break it down by song. The first song on the album is Nikes, which you have probably heard and or seen the video that he came out with. Nike. This song speaks on injustice and life in general. He says R.I.P. Trayvon, and he says that it looks just like him. So he's kind of putting himself in the shoes of, different people that have been through certain circumstances in the society today. He talks about issues that have been growing in the past few years. Track number 2, Ivy, was actually debuted in Munich in 2013. So it's one of the older tracks that, he created. This track really focuses on heartbreak, and the musicality in his voice kind of shows the heartbreak. It shows the waves that he's been going through, and Ivy is actually a really, really lovely song. It's one of my favorites. Nike is actually one of my favorite songs as well. Just throwing that in there. Now we come to Pink Plus White. Pink Plus White actually has Beyonce featured in it. If you haven't heard it yet, you should go and listen and see if you can actually find Beyonce in it. It's very low key, which is kind of interesting, because if you put Beyonce on a track, the entire focus is going to be on Beyonce, let's be honest, because it's Beyonce. But with Frank Ocean, what he did was he utilized Beyonce's vocals and he meshed it together well enough so that his voice was going to stand out. Pink plus white actually refers to one of his exes and how drugs really influenced that relationship. Once the high kind of came down, that he realized that he should not be in that relationship. And I think that that was a really good comparison that he did. Now we're down to the track or the interlude called Be Yourself, where Frank's mother kind of talks about saying no to drugs and saying no to drinking and all this stuff. She basically preaches, if you want to be schooled by Frank's mother, listen to Be Yourself. Solo is the next track, and it talks about life on the road, how you don't have to be single, but how it's basically you're riding solo throughout this entire experience. There's a part in the song where it has some O's in it and some oohs. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Right now. So the next track is Skyline II featuring Kendrick Lamar. Yes, I said it, Kendrick Lamar. What you're going to notice about this Blonde album is that anything that's featured in it is not really the main course of the song, let's say. It is a very low-key featuring, and I think that that's why he didn't put them in the albums. If you look at Blonde on iTunes, on Apple Music, you see that the song title is there, but there's no featuring Beyonce or featuring Kendrick Lamar. But I think Kendrick Lamar is the perfect addition to this song because it really benefits that whole, atmospheric kind of vibe that he's going for. Now we're down to the track Self-Control. Self-Control is hands down my favorite song of the album, and here's why. Self-Control is a love song, and the vocals are just amazing. I mean, Frank Ocean has really great vocals, but I think that certain songs kind of show his vocals more than other ones. Like Nike's, yeah, it's a great song, but a lot of it is just auto-tuned, so you can't really appreciate his voice. In this song, you're able to appreciate his voice and appreciate these harmonies that are at the end that are just flawless. And Self-Control basically talks about the love that he can't have, that he wants so bad, but he has to control himself because he can't have it. And I think that that is something that, people face today, and it's so relatable. All of his lyrics on this album are so relatable. Good Guy is the next track, and that focuses on masculinity in today's society. So it kind of does a lot of comparisons with, how masculinity has changed over the course of time. I think is a very, very prominent thing today. And Frank Ocean is just like the epitome of how masculinity has changed. And it's a game changer, really. This song is a game changer. So, Nights. Nights actually goes back to his whole car obsession. He talks about his Honda and his family and, his past. This is the song that I said, oh my gosh, he sounds like Chance the Rapper when he's rapping in this song. If you listen to it, you're going to understand what I'm saying. If you're a fan of Chance, you're going to love, love, love this track. The whole first part of the track is very, very R&B, but the second part is very rap. And that's where the whole Chance the Rapper thing that I think goes into it. The next track is called Solo Reprise. This one is Andre 3000 the entire time, and it is amazing. I love Andre 3000. And he puts his own kind of twist towards the solo song that we heard earlier. And it's a very jazzy feeling. There's a piano in the back, and he talks about current events in the world and kind of stays true to the whole what's going on today, what are the things that we're facing today. Andre 3000 was the best choice for this song. Pretty Sweet is an interlude that's next, and that one also captivates you in a different way. It's very short and sweet, but actually has some choral parts to it, which is actually, I think that's what makes it so captivating. It's so simple, yet with that choral, like I said in the beginning, with the gospel influences, this is a perfect example. Facebook Story is another one of these interludes. Facebook Story is actually hilarious. It's a story about one of Frank's friends, Sebastian, who kind of talks about this story about his ex and how jealousy came into play, but it all had to do with technology. He wouldn't accept her on Facebook, and so she thought automatically that he was cheating on her, but he was just like, we live together, we're always spending time together, why do you need to be on my Facebook? I don't even use it. And she got so mad that she ended up breaking up with him. And I think that it really shows how technology has kind of taken over society today and how it's come into play in relationships. Close to You is actually one of the shorter tracks on the album, and I think it refers to the Facebook story and how a breakup is. You're so close to the person for so long, and then you're not anymore, but you still feel close to them, and you still want to be close to them, even though you're broken up. White Ferrari, okay, I said Self-Control was my favorite, but White Ferrari is another one of my favorites. Frank is a car enthusiast, and I think that that's how the White Ferrari track name came about. A-Track actually tweeted about it last year, saying that it was going to be the best song you've heard all year, except it came out a year later, but he was right. It was one of the best songs on the album. White Ferrari is actually featuring Bon Iver's Justin Vernon as well as James Blake. And like I said, these featurings are very, very low key. But, with this one, you kind of hear it in the vocals and you know who it is. If you like James Blake and Bon Iver, you'll know exactly who's on this track. Siegfried is one of the last tracks on the album where Frank kind of shows his vulnerability in his lyrics and in his music. The vocals are very, very raw. It alludes back to crying, which, like I said before, is one of Frank's favorite things on this earth. And it refers to isolation a lot and kind of being lonely and crying and how that correlates. It actually ends with a spoken word that is just on point. Godspeed is the second to last track on the album, and it goes back to the Boys Don't Cry theme. This song is featuring Kim Burrell, and it's a ballad that's very, very inspiring. He alludes back to when he was a boy and he didn't cry as much. It's a very inspiring song to guys and girls in today's society. The last track on the album is Future of Free. I'm not really sure. It's the longest track on the album. I'm not sure if it's my favorite, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I like the beginning. I don't really like the end. So he kind of just puts the cherry on top with this track. Although it's not my favorite, it's very long, and like the beginning is just absolutely beautiful, but the end is just, recordings of people talking. And so now let's talk about Endless, which is a 45-minute visual album. The production of this whole album, or should I say, everything that's going on visually is very, very simplistic. It's Frank kind of divided into two screens doing something. I think that it has to do with his whole racing company, but I think this is a really cool way of showing Frank's personality and, his musical talent, because not only did he come out with just an album, but he came out with a visual album with completely new tracks. And I'm actually going to put the track list right here so you guys can see it. And this track list has also amazing featurings, including James Blake and some other folks that we see. This visual album is very, very beautiful. The beginning is a cover that's just amazing to me. Now let's talk about the tracks that I think should hit the static. So first of all, Nikes. I think that Nikes is kind of like a no-brainer. Honestly, I think so many songs on this album should be, on the radio, but because they're not so mainstream sounding, I feel like it's going to be harder for them to be on the radio. And I think that he knew what he was doing with this album, and he knows exactly, the audience that he's going to reach, which is the vast majority of people. But putting songs on the radio that are kind of basic sounding, that's not Frank Ocean. The songs that I think should be on the radio are Nikes, Ivy, Solo, Self-Control, White Ferrari. I mean, I'm sure there's more. But those are the 5 that I think actually have potential of being marketable on the radio. Even though some of them are more ballad sounding, some of them are more atmospheric sounding. I think that these are definitely the songs. Actually, Kanye West tweeted about how... I'm next to a car thing and it's just being really loud. Kanye West actually tweeted about this whole Frank Ocean being on the radio, which I think is perfect for this video. The radio needs to support amazing artists. I mean, that's it. The radio needs to support the artist. I don't care if the song is not basic enough or not mainstream enough. Like Frank Ocean, Kanye, Chance the Rapper, all these people should be on the radio. And all we hear is, not necessarily that the songs on the radio are bad songs. I think they're great in their own, in their own genres. But I feel like these are the types of songs that people relate to and people want to listen to. And I think that that's the whole point of Hit the Static, is that we want to show what we want, what you and I want, the listeners want to hear on the radio, and why. What makes these songs so special? Is it the lyrics? Is it the musicality? Is it just the artist? Like, there's just so many factors that come into the whole radio play. I created Hit the Static so that I can make these predictions and I can see what comes true. And if the songs that I choose go on the radio, that's awesome, because then I feel like, people are listening. If they don't, maybe it'll take some time, but I think that this will be a really, really good outlet, seeing if people will actually listen. You know what I mean? So that was my first Hit the Static album review. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, comment below. If you didn't, comment below. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your ideas. How should I structure this? Should I do it song by song? Should I just do, the album, kind of like an overview, and then do the breakdown of which songs I think will hit the static? Please let me know. Please comment below. And please, please, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye. I don't know what to do with my hand. I just want to scratch my head. Just gonna whip my hair back and forth. I whip my hair back and forth. Yeah. It's still raining. I don't know if you hear it, but it's so loud, and I feel like I shouldn't be talking to you about Frank Ocean, even though it's in the rain, in the ocean, in the water. I didn't just say that. I just love this song.
Visita i Florida del Sastre.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. You be spitting, oh, best believe that.
Oh, okay. Drake. Gotta have some Drake in your life. If you don't, get your life together.